going on a trip. Are you ready? I'm ready.
I got a ticket.
Awesome! Then away we go on SS Mango Cruise.
How about it's gonna be fun?
Oh, come all ye faithful. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come all ye faithful. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Christ the Lord. Do not be afraid.
弟兄姊妹，讓我哋一齊起立，我哋要奉主耶穌嘅名開始我哋今日嘅崇拜。你們和我當稱耶和華為大，一同高舉他的名。讓我哋一齊低頭禱告。親愛天父，我哋要讚美你，因為你係嗰位創造天地萬物嘅獨一真神。呢個世界本應就係屬於你，但係因為你愛我哋嘅緣故，你差派主耶穌基督喺我哋還作罪人嘅時候拯救我哋。主啊，我哋可以點樣回應你嘅愛呢？我哋點樣可以用愛去還你俾我哋嘅愛呢？神啊，我哋諗起你嘅使命，你們要去使萬民作我嘅門徒，奉聖父、聖子、聖靈嘅名為佢哋施洗。你就常與我哋同在。神啊，求你俾呢一個使命再一次喚醒我哋，復興我哋，讓我哋喺今個主日裏邊一齊嘅開口去讚美你，讓其他人睇到我哋嘅敬拜，聽到我哋嘅禱告，就用呢一個愛去差派喺人群當中。願你得到當得嘅榮耀，奉主耶穌基督得聖名者祈求，阿門。
這是天父世界，我們側耳靜聽，宇宙唱歌四圍響應，聖神創朗同聲，這是天父世界。心滿有安寧，花草樹木穹蒼的海，述是天父奇能。這是天父世界。唱齊名，清新明亮百花美麗，靜影創造聖神。這是天父世界，他愛普及萬千。吹出聲自他經過，隨處能聽他言。這是天父世界，叫我不可遺忘。黑暗勢力雖然猖狂，天父卻應作王。這是天父世界，我心不必憂傷。天父是王，宇宙同創，他賜萬 來蘇醒，心獻頌讚歌聲，投在你的翅膀，願你是人舊情，願榮耀歸處於高唱頌讚新歌，琴和應室奏鳴，樂韻歌聲齊和，全地至高是我處於各邦一致頌揚，讓這歌盡獻主，榮光高照諸天，慈愛達到穹蒼處，因慈信實並賜下寬容饒恕。願靈來蘇醒，心獻頌讚歌聲，投在你的翅膀，願你是人舊情，願榮耀歸處於高唱頌讚新歌，琴和應室奏鳴，樂韻歌聲齊和，全地至高是我處於各邦一致頌揚，讓這歌盡獻主，榮光高照諸天，慈愛達到穹蒼處，因慈信實並賜下寬容饒恕，全地至高是我處於各邦一致頌揚，讓這歌盡獻主於榮光高照諸天，慈愛達到穹蒼處，因慈信實並賜下寬容饒恕。賜下你恩光，照亮我心房，不會再驚慌，為你奔走飄遠方，哪懼怕奔波，靠在你身旁，竟為我擔當，讓我罪裏得釋放。凡失喪的、呼喊的，你都親手撫摸，讓不朽的、溫暖的真愛療治痛楚。主，你當得敬拜讚美，你恩典覆蓋這地，頌唱和散那歌聲全為你起，榮耀頌讚歸於你讚美，你關心親切細膩，用愛還愛這奇妙道理，一生得銘記。賜下你恩光，照亮我心房，不會 再驚慌，為你奔走飄遠方。那懼怕奔波，靠在你身旁，竟為我擔當，讓我罪裏得釋放。凡失喪的、呼喊的，你都親手撫摸，讓不朽的、溫暖的真愛療治痛楚。主，你當得敬拜讚美，你恩典覆蓋這地，眾唱和散那歌聲全為你起，榮耀頌讚歸於你讚美，你關心親切細膩，用愛還愛這奇妙道理，一生都明主，你當得敬拜讚美，你恩典覆蓋這地，眾唱和散那歌聲全為你起，榮耀頌讚歸於你讚美，你關心親切細膩，用愛還愛這奇妙道理，一生都銘記。
我哋主確實配受敬拜，因為佢用愛嚟到去表達對我哋眾人嘅關愛、真愛，佢值得我哋去歌頌。我係高華林宣道會其中一位牧者 Pastor Alex， 代表教會嚟到去歡迎每一位弟兄姊妹，特別係想歡迎一下有冇啲新嚟嘅第一次嚟嘅朋友或者弟兄姊妹，你可以喺座位度揮下手，讓我哋見到你。喺下邊有一位，仲有冇？我喺呢邊都有一位 ，Hello。我冇睇漏眼咧，上面有嘅。好，如果第一次嚟嘅弟兄姊妹或者朋友，你係尋找緊呢個屬靈嘅家嘅話，願主繼續引領你哋嘅道路。好，跟住落嚟咧都有一啲嘅報告啦。咁今日好高興有Mr. Paul Brooks 喺我哋當中咧嚟到同我哋分享差傳嘅信息。咁一陣間我會再講多啲關於佢一啲嘅背景。好，咁另外咧就係下個禮拜崇拜後咧就係有呢個食晏餸嘅餸。咁呢一個咧都係過往喺 Covid 之前咧都有嘅一啲嘅喺樓下一齊聚餐嘅機會。咁嚟到可以俾弟兄姊妹一齊去聯繫一下，傾下偈，嚟到去互相嚟到關心一下。呢個都係好嘅機會。咁嚟緊呢，我哋又會再舉行啦。咁呢個簡約嘅午餐呢，咁喺出邊呢，我哋會有即係購票嘅地方啦，喺門口。咁小朋友5歲以下嘅呢就免費。咁65歲以上同埋6歲至10歲嘅就5蚊，其他呢都一律10蚊。咁都鼓勵大家嚟到去參與喺其中，可以大家喺度傾下偈啦。好，咁亦都我哋繼續係承聘緊2個嘅崗位啦，有兒童事工助理主任係部分時間嘅，同埋辦公室行政助理係全時間嘅。咁如果想知道詳細嘅資料呢，就喺我哋嘅網頁嗰度可以查閲嘅。最近都有一啲嘅弟兄姊妹嚟查詢有關於嬰兒奉獻禮嘅資料嘅。咁都如果大家在座睇到㗎啦，而你又有呢一方面嘅需要嘅話呢，都可以聯絡周牧師。明年嘅復活節洗禮呢已經接受報名啦。咁查詢或者報名呢，就請大家呢去同牧者或者喺辦公室嘅同工嚟到聯絡。我哋 教會都響應宣道會總會呢，係支持澤富文宣教基金嘅奉獻嘅時候呢，如果有意係喺呢一個嘅基金上面嚟到去參與嘅話呢，咁都寫註明喺呢個澤富文呢3個字呢，嚟到寫喺呢一個嘅奉獻封嘅當中。咁我哋會將呢啲嘅奉獻呢撥去俾總會嘅。今日就截止啦，咁請大家留意。好，亦都我哋過往嘅1個月咧，都去呼籲大家嚟參與喺呢一個聖誕鞋盒嘅呢個有意義嘅活動嘅當中。我哋總共收到92個鞋盒嚟到去送俾嗰啲有需要嘅小朋友，盼望呢啲咧都成為呢啲嘅朋友嘅祝福。跟住落嚟，我哋繼續嚟到去敬拜我哋嘅主，亦都讓我同大家有一個嘅禱告嘅時間。天父上帝，我哋最近知道有唔少嘅肢體都在病患嘅當中，甚願主你親自嚟到醫治佢哋每一個，亦都堅固佢哋嘅信心，讓佢哋經歷呢一個苦難嘅時候，睇到上帝你恩手嘅拖大，亦都睇到你恩典嘅豐富。願主你嘅平安與佢哋同在。亦都知道有弟兄姊妹嘅親人係離世，相信都係非常非常之傷心難過。主啊，求你嘅安慰臨到呢啲嘅弟兄姊妹嘅家中，讓佢哋經歷主你嗰份愛溫柔嘅慰問，亦都喺打點親人嘅後事當中，亦都俾佢哋有順利。求主你恩待，亦都為到好多而家有小朋友仔女嘅家庭嘅都交上俾你，因為流感嘅緣故，有好多都病倒，喺屋企亦都要照顧患病嘅小朋友嘅時候，確實都係好唔容易。主，我就求你同樣你嘅醫治臨到每一家，亦都加能力，特別俾父母，讓佢哋咧能夠好好嘅照顧仔女，嚟到幫助佢哋康復。求主恩臨，多謝你聽我哋禱告，奉主耶穌基督名求，阿門。
主你要往哪里走，我就跟你走，领我走到世界尽头，一生不再回头，让世界听到我们敬拜，我们的祷告，让复兴从我们开始，将主爱带到人群中。我并不完美，也并不特别，而你却是为我舍去生命的主。我时常软弱，有时会迷惑，但你是道路、真理和生命。主，你要往哪里走，我就跟你走，领我走到世界尽头，一生不再回头，让世界听到我们敬拜，我们的祷告，让复兴从我们开始，将主爱带到人群中。主，你要往哪里走，我就跟你走，领我走到世界尽头，一生不再回头，让世界听到我们敬拜， 將主愛帶到人群中。往哪裡走，我就跟你走，領我走到世界盡頭，一生不再回頭，讓世界聽到我們敬拜，我們的禱告，讓復興從我們開始，將主愛帶到人群中。縱然有許多的問題，我也不放棄。你帶領賜給我勇氣，我會勇敢走出去。阿門。
講有關差傳嘅主日，我哋好高興能夠邀請到 Mr. Paul Brooks 嚟到喺當中同我哋分享腓立比書1章1至6節，而主題係福音夥伴。而 Mr. Paul Brooks 咧係喺我哋世界宣道會裏邊咧係擔任一個宣教嘅策略顧問。咁佢去過好多唔同嘅地方嚟到去了解當地嘅情況，並且咧去同唔同嘅地區嚟到制定一啲嘅傳福音嘅策略。咁都好恭敬嚟到邀請佢嚟到我哋當中同我哋分享。Please welcome Mr. Paul Brooks。亦都有做翻譯。
Thank you so much, Pastor Galax,
多謝加勒牧師。
for what I think was a warm welcome.
我估係歡迎我吧。
But clearly I don't actually know at all.
其實我一啲都聽唔明白。
It's a real privilege to be here with you.
實在好榮幸嚟大家當中。
I feel very welcomed by Pastor Galax
覺得係費加嚟對我歡迎。
and Pastor Ming. It is good to be with you.
係，好多謝你嚟我當中。
And Pastor Paul greeted me warmly when we arrived.
仲有趙牧師好歡迎我嚟到今朝嚟到當中。
I feel very much at home.
我覺得好似係賓至如歸咁。
I also want you to know I am very pleased because I was able to bring my wife Darlene and my daughter Megan to come and join me.
所以我高興我嘅太太同我嘅女都同我一齊喺呢度。
They love it when I point them out in a crowd.
所以佢哋有啲唔好意思㗎。
But I also want to bring you greetings from our president of the Christian Missionary Alliance Canada, Darren Herbold.
我亦都為到係Darren Herbold 係我哋加拿大總會嘅我哋嘅會長，係特別向大家問候。
I told him I was going to be here this morning, and he asked me to give you a warm hello.
我今朝同佢講話，我嚟到你哋當中，佢特別嘅吩咐我咧向大家問候嘅。
And the same greetings from our Vice President of International Mission, Damien Lee.
特別亦都係代表我哋加拿大總會嘅副會長Damien 係問候大家。
We chatted this morning, and he wanted me to say a good hello to you as well.
我今朝就同佢短信，佢都話特別嘅要問候你哋。
As I was coming here, preparing to come here today,
當我準備嚟到你哋當中嘅時候，
I did what most people do
我係就做咗係所有人都會做嘅。
when you're going to a new church.
當你去一個新嘅教會，
What do you do if you're, well, what would you do if you're going to a new church? What would you do
去
first?
一個新嘅教會，你會做啲咩嘢先呢？
You Google you, right?
我哋 Google 你哋咯。
That's what I did.
咁我就咁做啦。
So I Googled you as a church,
我 Google 咗你哋教會，
and I came across your vision statement,
我見到你哋嘅使命宣言，
and I loved it.
我好中意。
So your vision statement is this:
你嘅使命宣言係咁嘅，
to make devoted followers of Jesus Christ who love and live so as to lead all people to God.
次次成為耶穌基督嘅熱切追隨者，以愛同埋生活去引領各族各方嘅人歸向上帝。
That is a great vision.
呢個係好好嘅一個異象。
Do you feel like you live that out all the time?
你覺得你有冇常常咁樣活出嚟啊？
If you're like me, it's I would call it an aspirational vision.
如果你好似我咁咧，我覺得呢個係一個嘅係理想，一個嘅我嘅希望。
When I'm at my best, I would love that to be true.
當我哋係嚟到嘅時候，我哋盡量係
And
活得更好。
sometimes life just makes that difficult.
但係有時喺人生生活當中就有好多嘅困難。
But I would love us to think together this morning of what that could be like.
我想同大家一齊嘅思考喺今朝嘅早上係應該係會點樣樣嘅咧？
How do we live that out? How do we live so that all people can meet Jesus?
我哋點樣能夠生活活出嚟，讓更多人、所有人能夠係遇見耶穌咧？
And particularly, it gets harder in the 21st century.
特別喺21世紀當中，我哋就越嚟越難啦。
Missions looks different now
宣教完全係一個唔同嘅係情況，
because it has to.
因為係會係咁樣樣嘅。
You and I think differently about missions today than we did 50 years ago.
我哋喺今日係思考到係宣教嘅時候，係同50年前係完全唔同嘅。
And particularly, the younger generations think differently
特別
about
係
missions.
呢個年青嘅一代更加有唔同嘅想法。
I want to put a picture of an individual up on the
我
screen.
想係將係一位嘅係相片照放出嚟。
This individual, does anybody recognize this face?
呢位弟兄唔知有邊個認識嘅咧？
It's not me.
唔係佢啊！
Maybe, oh no, it's not me. This individual was a young man in 1956.
呢位年青人喺1956年，
His name was Jim Elliot.
佢嘅名就叫做亞略德。
So if you know something about missionary history, you might know that name.
如果你
Jim
知道一
Elliot.
少少宣教歷史嘅話，你可能知道呢個名。
Because back in 1956, this young man, he was 28 years old,
呢個係年青人喺1956年嘅時候，佢係28歲嘅。
and he wanted to bring the good news of Jesus to one of the most remote places of the world.
佢想將呢個好嘅消息係帶到一個最偏遠、最偏遠嘅角落。
That place was down in Ecuador.
呢個地方就喺呢個厄瓜多爾嗰度。
So Jim Elliot and 4 of his friends took a plane and landed on the beach.
Jim Elliot 同埋4位嘅同工去坐咗個小飛機，係降落咗喺個沙灘上邊。
And they were martyred for their faith almost immediately.
佢哋就為咗佢哋嘅信仰係當場被殺。
It was a very remote tribe, and they killed them as they landed.
呢個係好偏遠一個部落，佢哋一降落嘅時候就被殺啦。
But in 1956, that inspired a movement of missions.
但係喺1956年嘅時候，因住佢哋嘅殉道嘅時候，就係激起咗一個係宣教嘅浪潮。
Hundreds or perhaps thousands of missionaries were sent out in response to this.
上百可能已經過千嘅一啲嘅年輕人就係回應咗呢個宣教嘅呼召，去到宣教工場。
High schools were named after Jim Elliot.
有中學以佢命名，
Movies were made.
有電影係為
Books
佢
were
拍攝
written.，
又有係書，
Even musicals were produced.
甚至音樂劇都係為佢嚟去係演出。
It was an inspiring moment in history for missions.
一個係好令人有啟發嘅一個嘅時刻。
But 4 years ago, this story repeated itself.
但4年前呢個故事係再重
Let me
新
put
上
this
演。
next face up.
但係睇第二張相，
Do any of you recognize this young man?
唔知大家有邊位係認識佢咧？
Maybe not.
或者冇啦。
His name is John Chow.
呢位年青人叫做莊周，
He also grew up in the same area as Jim Elliot,
佢其實亦都係從 Jim Elliot 嘅生長嘅地方。
and in 2018, he wanted to take the good news of Jesus to the most remote place he could think of.
同樣喺2018年嘅時候，佢希望將呢個好消息帶到喺世界裏邊最偏僻嘅一個角落。
So he went to North Sentinel Island in the Indian Ocean.
所以佢就去到呢個嘅係印度洋嘅係 North Sentinel 呢個島上邊。
And as he landed on the beach, he too was killed for his faith.
當佢係登陸呢個嘅海灘嘅時候，同
This
樣
was
嘅
just
佢
4
被
years
殺
ago.
大概4年前。
But the response of the world was entirely different.
但係世界嘅回應完全係唔不同啦，
He was not celebrated.
完全冇人慶祝
There's
或者
no
係
movies.
反而係好多嘅批評，
No musicals.
冇音樂劇。
As a matter of fact, the entire world turned on him.
其實整個世界都對佢有極大嘅批評，
Rejected him, rejected his faith in Jesus.
拒絕佢，令佢反對佢嘅信仰。
Even in some of our churches, we weren't quite sure what to think about him.
甚至有啲教會當中都唔知道應該係點樣去面對呢個事情。
Should we still be going to places where Jesus is not known?
我哋應唔應該仍然要去到一啲係從來係冇福音嘅地方呢？
The world media would tell you no.
呢個世界媒體會講俾你聽 ，no。
They would say, leave those people alone.
佢會講俾你聽係讓佢哋好好嘅自己繼續生活，
Don't bring your faith and your culture.
唔好將你嘅信仰、你嘅文化帶到佢哋當中。
They're perfectly happy.
Could they-
Don't intrude on them.
佢哋過得好好，千祈唔好打擾佢哋。
Matter of fact, this one statement was written by someone in the media.
一句咁嘅説話就係喺佢呢個媒體裏面咁樣講法嘅。
He said, John was an innocent child who died from an extreme vision of Christianity taken to its logical conclusion.
其實 John 係一個好無知嘅年青人而已，佢將佢一個嘅極端嘅信仰去帶到係佢人生當中，以致產生一個咁樣嘅結果。
That was John's father.
呢個係John 嘅爸爸。
How we in the world responded to missions today is very different than 50 years ago.
今日世界對宣教嘅呢個事工嘅嗰個反應睇法，同以前完全嘅唔同晒啦。
So how should we respond?
我哋應該點回應呢？
As you can imagine, the Apostle Paul had some thoughts on this.
你可以想象係使徒保羅有一啲對呢方面有一啲嘅講法。
And I would like to have Pastor Ming read Philippians chapter 1, verse 1 to 6.
你哋會讀係腓立比書第1章嘅1到6節嘅，係我哋讀係環球聖經譯本嘅。我們是保羅和提摩太，基督耶穌的奴僕，如今寫信給作住在腓立比，在基督耶穌裏的所有聖徒，以及諸位監督和執事，願恩典平安從我們的神父和主耶穌基督臨到你們。我每逢想到你們，都感謝我的神，每次為你們大家祈求，總是歡歡喜喜地祈求，因為你們從第一天直到現在，都是我在福音上的伙伴。我深信神已經在你們當中開始了美好的工作，就會繼續這工作，直到基督耶穌的日子，把這工作完成。
Thank you. Paul refers to the church as partnering with him in the gospel.
保羅講到腓立比教會係佢嘅福音伙伴。
But what was written to the church in Philippi applies to you and me as well.
其實呢封寫俾腓立比嘅書信，亦都係同樣今日係對你哋所講嘅。
Let me ask you,
讓我問一問大家，
where was Paul when he wrote that?
當保羅寫呢封信嘅時候喺邊度啊？
Where was Paul when he wrote many of his letters?
其實保羅寫有好多一啲嘅書信當中，佢喺邊度呢？
In prison.
佢坐緊監喎。
He wrote that in probably what was the most difficult place he could be.
佢其實當寫啲信嘅時候，就係佢喺一個好困難嘅環境當中。
In circumstances that would make his life very difficult.
其實喺呢個環境當中係讓佢生活係好艱難。
And in circumstances you would think would make it difficult to share the good news about Jesus.
你會想象就話喺咁嘅環境當中，實在好難去再分享耶穌基督。
We know because we can look back in hindsight and know how the story played out.
我哋現在係重新去睇嘅時候，當然事後孔明就知道當時事情係點樣樣啦。
But at the time it was not that clear.
但係喺當時嘅時候，實在係唔樂觀嘅。
But I love to read this next passage.
我願意同大家讀以下呢段嘅經文。
This is the same chapter in Philippians, but a few verses later, verse 12 to 14.
同樣喺腓立比書同一卷書係喺後少少嘅係14到係15節。
Can you read verse 12 to 14?
OK，12 to 14，12到係14節。弟兄們，我願意你們知道，我所遭遇的事更是叫福音興旺，以致我受的捆鎖，在御營全軍和其餘的人中，已經顯明是為基督的緣故。並且在主裏的弟兄多半因我受的捆鎖，就篤信不疑，越發放膽傳神的道，無所懼怕。
So it seems that the difficult circumstances didn't inhibit the gospel.
其實你睇到呢個困難嘅環境，完全冇妨礙到福音嘅擴展。
They actually enhanced the spread of the good news.
其實就係因為咁嘅情況，令福音更加廣傳。
Is it possible that that's true for you and me today?
會唔會今日 同樣對你同我係一樣咁樣呢？
We have come through 2 or 3 very difficult years,
我哋已經經歷咗係2到3年好困難嘅日
and we're
子，
still working our way through it.
我哋仍然喺度掙扎去過
COVID has been
緊，
very hard to deal with.
我哋係喺度正在面對緊。
Is it very possible, though, that God will use that to help enhance the spread of the gospel?
會唔會神利用一咁嘅環境係讓福音能夠更廣傳呢？
I would like to talk about how that is possible and is happening
我
today.
想同大家就分享嘅時候，點樣呢個就係其實係有咁嘅可能性，其實現在正在發生緊嘅。
So, how do we live all this out today in the 21st century?
我哋點樣喺20世紀當中係活出嚟呢？
So in 2018, matter of fact, there's a map I think we could put up here. In 2018, the Christian Missionary Alliance decided to pray together, should we re-engage in South Asia?
喺2019年嘅時候，我哋宣道會嘅大家庭喺度思考，我哋要唔要重新進入南亞呢個工場？
I was on the board of Christian Missionary Alliance Canada at the time.
喺嗰陣時候，坡弟兄係喺總會嘅董事會嘅係成員之一。
And together with our churches, we prayed about this.
我同大家好多嘅宣道會嘅教會一同嘅禱告，尋求神嘅心意。
Because we have to understand how much the world has changed in the last few short years.
呢個我哋要理解喺過往一段日子當中，世界已經發生好大嘅轉變。
If we go back 30 or 40 years, the majority of Christians lived in the global north.
喺30-40年前嘅時候咧，大部分基督徒都喺北半球生活，
In North America and Europe,
喺北美同埋歐洲，
75% of Christians lived in the global north.
所以係有75% 嘅基督徒咧係喺北半球生活嘅。
But today the picture is entirely different.
今日已經完全唔同啦。
2/3 of all Christians live in the global south.
喺2/3嘅基督徒其實喺南半球生活嘅。
So how do we think about missions now?
我哋應該同樣思考宣教咧。
Is it possible that the gospel will come from the south back to the north?
會唔會有可能呢個福音會係從南半球係翻嚟北半球咧？
That actually will be what is happening.
而
That
且
is what is
呢個
happening.
好可能就係咁樣樣，而且正在發生緊。
So in 2018, we as a family of churches decided to look at this one nation you see in dark red on the screen.
所以喺2018年嘅時候，我哋重新審視係特別係呢一個國家。
This map here shows the concentration of unreached people groups in the world.
所以喺呢一個地圖係特別係展示咗喺全球裏邊未得之民嘅民族。
There are clearly many places we should be going and need to go.
其實有好多地方我哋都需要去傳福音，亦都係應該要去嘅。
But if that one nation is not in our thinking, we're missing something.
如果呢個國家係唔喺我哋嗰個嘅視野當中嘅時候，可能我哋就係好大嘅損失啦。
This one nation, the population of that one nation by the year 2025 will be competing with China for the largest population in the world.
其實到2025年嘅時候，呢個國家嘅人口好可能就會係超過中國，
It's going to be doing this.
可能兩個好似跑馬咁。
Very well then. But that one nation is home to about 40% of the unreached people groups of the world.
喺呢個國家裏邊係包含咗全球40%嘅未得之民。
It's the most diverse and complex nation in the world.
呢個係一個好複雜，又係一個好係分歧嘅一個國家。
Over 2,000 ethnic groups,
有2000個民族，
1,700 different languages,
1700種唔同嘅語言，
and 40% of the world's poorest people.
有全球40%嘅貧窮人口。
And Christianity is the target of intense discrimination and persecution.
而基督嘅信仰喺呢個國家裏邊受到好多嘅迫害同埋歧視。
So as a family of churches, we prayed together
成為我哋係教會一個大家庭當中嘅時候，我哋一同嘅禱
and
告，
decided that God must be calling us here.
有感覺神喺度呼喚我哋。
But what does it mean for us to go there?
但係咁咩？究竟我哋要去嘅時候係咩嘅意思咧？
Does it mean I send 2 people to a population of 1.8 billion people?
難道我哋只係 係差派2位宣教士去到呢個18億人口嘅南亞洲嗎？
Or do we look for where God is already at work
抑或睇緊神已經喺邊度係開始已經工作啦，
and partner with them?
同佢哋做伙伴。
Because in the midst of all the difficulty of these days
喺今日當中種種困難，
and how the world is thinking differently about missions,
喺世界正在係對宣教有唔同嘅想法，
we are still called to go.
我哋仍然係被呼召要去，
The Great Commission still exists.
大使命仍然存在。
And you read that in Matthew 28, verse 18 to 20.
其實喺馬太福音28章18到20節嘅時候已經講俾我哋聽。
Would you like to read that or quote it?
OK，
Matthew 28, verse 18 to 20.
耶穌進前來對門徒咁樣講，所以你天上地下權柄都已經賜俾我哋，賜俾我啦。所以你哋要去，使萬民作我啲門徒，奉父子聖靈的名為他們施洗，將我所係教導你哋嘅都要教訓佢哋遵守，然後我就會與你們同在，直到世界的末了。
So the Great Commission has not been withdrawn.
其實大使命冇係取消㗎，
We are still called to go,
我哋仍然被呼召要去，
but what does going look like?
但係去究竟係怎樣啲咩一回事呢？
Can it look different than it did in the past?
會唔會係同以前所謂嘅去係有啲唔同呢？
So I would like to talk through what some of our first steps are as we think about going to the global south, particularly to South Asia.
特別我想同大家去思考，我哋要去嘅時候，去到呢個南半球，特別呢個南亞洲。
The first step forward is going to be establish key partnerships with organizations and churches and believers who are on the ground.
係，當我哋要去嘅時候，我哋會就同喺當地已經有嘅係呢啲嘅事工組織同埋教會係一齊嘅伙伴。
In every nation we go to, there are many who are following Jesus and serving him and reaching their own people.
其實到我哋好多唔同嘅國家嘅時候，佢本地已經有工人信徒係去係服侍佢哋本國嘅人民。
The other thing we'd like to do is partner with our local churches here.
第二，我哋要希望同本地嘅加拿大本地嘅教會係伙伴。
Is it possible? Are there ways that you and I can minister together in South Asia?
我哋有冇可能一齊嘅同工去服侍南亞洲呢？
And I do mean in prayer,
我哋意思係當然禱告啦，
and I mean we need to give,
當然我哋奉獻啦，
but I mean more than that.
但係我希望有更多一啲。
Are there ways that you and I could actually minister in South Asia, particularly that one country, today? Could we do it?
有冇呢啲其他嘅渠道，讓我哋更可以係參與去服侍係呢度南亞洲呢個嘅係工場，特別係印度呢個國家。
In a few minutes, I'm going to explain there is a way that we can do this together.
喺幾分鐘之後，我要特別係同大家分享有啲咩嘅渠道方法可以嚟參與。
Because just like you, I like to think of people sitting next to me in the pew. Can we actually minister?
我好似同大家一樣，我哋都思考喺教會當中坐喺我隔離嘅呢啲弟兄姊妹係咪可以一齊嚟到參與呢？
You can, and God will use you from right here in Canada.
神係可以，亦都會使用你，就喺本地加拿大裏邊。
So let me explain a couple of different ways that we're partnering together.
讓我同大家分享幾種能夠去伙伴嘅方法。
The first is that we're coming alongside another organization that has been doing ministry in South Asia for 20 years.
我哋係去參與咗係一個嘅係一個團體，已經喺印度服侍咗20年㗎啦。
They have a dream of planting 100,000 churches by 2030.
佢哋有一個嘅計劃，去到係2030年嘅時候，佢係值10萬間教會。
And by church, they mean at least 12 baptized believers.
教會嘅意思就係希望每個教會起碼有12位受洗嘅信徒。
So we would love to partner with them.
我哋要同佢哋伙伴。
We have a dream that by the year 2030,
我哋有一個嘅夢想係到2030年嘅時候，
we could help plant 50,000 churches and bring 500,000 people to believe in Jesus.
我哋希望可以直到係5萬間教會，同埋有50萬嘅係裝備嘅信徒。
Does that seem ridiculous?
你覺得係呢個係不可想像嗎？
Like a little bit.
好似有啲係咪啊？
part of my Scottish nature is skepticism.
係我作為一個蘇格蘭裔人咧，特別咧對好多嘢都好懷疑嘅。
So I know when somebody says those kind of targets, I'm like, yeah, sure.
咁當人咧講啲咁樣嘅一個數字嘅時候咧，我覺得係咪真㗎？
But what we're finding is that God is already doing that in South Asia.
但係我哋發現原來上帝已經喺南亞洲做緊咁嘅工作啦。
We're late to the game.
我哋已經係遲到一步啦。
That organization I talked about, who we're going to partner with,
嗰個嘅喺嗰邊嘅呢個嘅團隊，我哋要同佢伙伴呢個團隊，
have been doing this for 20 years
佢哋已經做咗20年啦。
and have already planted over 40,000 churches in South Asia, that one country.
It's 40,000.
40,000, 40,000.
That's right. 其實呢個嘅團體已經咧喺南亞洲咧係植咗係4萬間教會啦。
God is already at work.
上帝已經在工作啦。
So our first step forward is to work with them and come alongside and partner with them.
我哋要做嘅第一步就係去同佢哋伙伴。
There will be a second area that we will partner with, and that is in digital mentoring.
第二方面，我要同佢伙伴嘅就係數字面導或者數字嘅輔導，
Online mentoring,
就
where
喺
you
在
and I
線
can
上
participate.
邊去面導。
So I'll come to that in a second.
一陣間我同大家嘅詳細分享。
I'd like to show you a couple of slides of pictures of the training centers we were talking about.
我哋講一啲培訓中心嘅一啲嘅照片。
So this is one of the training centers that our partner is building.
呢個係其中我哋嘅 partner 嘅伙伴嘅所建嘅一個培訓中心。
In each training center, 25 people come together for 1 year, live together, and then are sent out to go and plant churches.
每個培訓中心會係收係25位嘅係呢啲學員咧，係一同嘅生活訓練1年。
One of the things we would like to do as a family of churches in Canada
我哋喺加拿大嘅眾教會係希望做到其中一件事嘅，
is to build 1 or 2 of these training centers every year.
希望能夠幫助佢哋係每年咧起1間或者2間咁嘅培訓中心。
So that every year you increase the capacity of training locally led believers.
所以係咁樣起咗之後，每年可以係去訓練到喺本地係成長嘅係受培訓嘅同工。
Trained by South Asians, led by South Asians, inspired by South Asian leaders.
係去被南亞嘅同工所引領、所栽培、所建立嘅。
So this is a picture of one of the training centers. The next couple of pictures show you some more of the training centers.
係下一個就俾大家睇嘅多啲一啲啦。
They build training centers for men and women.
所以佢哋建立呢啲培訓中心係俾男俾女嘅，
And in those centers, there's gospel and evangelism training,
裏邊有福音，有係報道嘅係訓練，
as well as practical skills needed to reach out to the community.
同埋可以有實用嘅一啲技巧，點樣去外展到社區當中。
So far, if you see the next slide, so far, that organization has built 51 training centers.
佢啲團隊現在已經起咗51個培訓中心，
We would like that to get up to 100.
我哋希望能夠再加到達到100個。
And this slide says there are 9,800 national workers. It's over 10,000 now.
呢度話係9800個一個本地嘅同工，其實已經超過1萬啦。
So in South Asia today, over 10,000 men and women are planting churches every year.
所以現在喺南亞洲裏邊，每一年有係10萬個呢啲嘅男女嘅同工咧，係
And we get to
去
be
植教
part of
會
that.，
係每年植一間啊。
On this next slide, it shows this number of 38,000 is over 40,000 now. Communities transformed, which means churches planted.
其實呢度話係38000，其實已經超過咗4萬個呢啲嘅係社區被改變，其實就係有係超過4萬間教會喺嗰度當中係被建立啦。
We had talked about how difficult has COVID made things over the last few years.
我哋喺過去幾年，我哋講到呢個疫情有
This
幾
next
大嘅
slide
困
gives you
難
an
影
idea.
響。下一幅，
The one after this one.
再下一幅。
In a typical year in a training center, there would be 24 or 25 students in each of the training centers.
以往每年嘅典型咧，我哋係只係訓練咗係每個中心係24個學員。
During the COVID, those numbers increased to 99 or 40 in the men's and women's training
佢
center.
睇到係過往喺呢個疫情當中，反而係增加到係男性嘅係99位，然後女性係40位。
It wasn't just because they packed more people in.
其實個原因咧，唔係因為佢哋係再收多啲咁嘅係宿生住
They,
宿生，
they went online and started doing the training online.
佢哋開始係在線嘅訓練啊。
So you would have people on their app, their WhatsApp or whatever it was, learning their lessons.
所以有啲嘅佢哋嘅手機嘅 app 咧係去學習受培訓。
It was really exciting to watch that.
其實係好
And they got very creative.
佢哋好有創意。
I might have a slide there, actually. I can show one slide of a young man who built himself a little tree fort, actually. See that right there?
你睇到係有一個年青嘅學員，佢為咗呢件事咧，佢起咗一間喺樹頂起咗一個嘅係。
They're out in the remote areas and can't get reception on their phone.
因為佢喺邊地方，佢啲手機信號咧唔掂啊，
So he built a tree fort and went up in the tree fort so he can get reception to learn his lesson.
所以佢咧要起一個咁嘅平台喺個樹頂入邊咧，頂係30尺嘅，所以變咗個手機信號可以收得到，
I love the creativity and dedication.
即係好有創意。
Okay. I'll skip ahead to slide 22, actually.
我哋去
The second area of partnership,
第二
we
方
talk
面
about
我哋能夠伙伴嘅，
so we have church planting partners,
我哋有植堂嘅係伙伴
and we
同
also
工。
have a ministry called digital mentoring.
另外一方面，我哋有個數字嘅係勉導或者係引導輔導。
Online ministry that you and I can participate in today.
呢個係在線嘅事工，係你同我今日就可以參與。
We partnered with another organization.
我哋同另外一個嘅機構係伙伴。
Here in Canada, it's called Power to Change.
喺加拿大叫 Power to Change，
And they do online ministry around the world.
佢哋係喺全球裏邊有呢個嘅係線上嘅事工。
And I used to work with Power to Change.
我以往係其實係 Power to Change 嘅同工嚟嘅。
But about 6 months after I stepped into this role, they gave me a call.
當我係參與咗宣道會嘅服侍6個月之後，佢打電話俾我，
And they said, we have a problem.
佢話我哋有一個問題，
We do online ministry into South Asia.
我哋係已經係用在線嘅事工進入咗南亞洲啦。
And we have a website that attracts people who are struggling with issues in their life.
我哋係建立咗個網站，特別係去係幫助一啲喺人生當中遇到困難嘅
I
人。
think we have a picture of the website. Is the next slide. There it is.
嗱，呢個就係個網站啦。
This website is called My Struggles.
呢個嘅係網站就叫做我的掙扎。
So people who are struggling with difficult things in their life.
呢啲係有啲嘅人喺佢人生當中係遇見有好多嘅掙扎、有啲困難嘅時候，
They come to this webpage
佢哋嚟到呢個網站，
and they will find a story of somebody they identify with who's struggling with the same thing.
佢哋喺呢個網站裏揾到有啲嘅人，有啲嘅見證咧，可能都為咗同樣嘅事情正在係掙扎，曾經掙扎過，
It could be depression or alcoholism or financial problems.
可能係酗酒啊、憂鬱啊各樣嘢。
But what they find is somebody's story who found hope in Jesus.
當佢哋聽到呢啲見證嘅時候，就見到呢啲人喺耶穌基督裏揾到咗盼望。
And as they read the story, they're invited to connect with a mentor.
所以當佢哋睇到呢啲見證嘅時候，佢哋就被邀請去同係呢啲嘅導師係可以聯絡上。
Would you like to speak to someone, or not speak to, would you like to communicate with someone who will just walk this journey with you?
你想唔想係揾一個人同你聯繫，同你一齊係同行喺你人生呢個困難當中咧？
The problem that Power to Change had,
個 Power Change 呢個機構現在嗰個困難係，
they had to keep shutting the web page down
佢哋成日要將呢個網站暫停，
because they didn't have enough mentors to handle all the responses.
因為佢唔夠導師咧去接受呢啲嘅係請求，
So they came and asked, could I help?
所以佢哋嚟到問阿坡就話：可唔可以幫手？
Well, I can't help.
阿坡幫唔到。
But we have 450 churches across the country.
但係我哋自己宣道會喺加拿大有超過450間教會，
We can help.
我哋可以幫手。
Imagine if there were just a few mentors from every congregation across the country.
其實就我哋只需要喺每個會眾當中有幾位嘅呢啲嘅導師就可以。
We could have hundreds, perhaps thousands of mentors connecting with people today in South Asia.
我哋可以有上百甚至過千嘅啲導師 係同呢啲南亞嘅呢啲嘅朋友係聯
So
繫上。
we decided to try it.
所以我哋係決定咗去嘗試。
And so today we've just barely got started.
我哋啱啱開始咗冇
But
幾
if you
耐。
go to the next slide, we have over 60 mentors from across the country.
我哋係喺全國當中係有超過60位嘅導師。
I know of at least one in this church. I don't know if there's more.
知道我哋教會當中又係一位嘅，不過我唔知佢名嘅。
But those mentors have connected with over 3,000 people from South Asia.
所以呢60多位嘅導師已經係聯繫咗係超過300位從南亞嚟嘅朋友。
And about 15 to 20% of those connections turn into ongoing conversations.
其實當中有15到20% 嘅呢啲嘅朋友咧，係願意係持久繼續呢個咁樣嘅關係。
It has been amazing to see how those conversations have gone.
我哋其實可以好訝異睇到佢哋當中係呢啲嘅交談。
People are not sending a message saying, "Tell me about Jesus."
佢哋係聯繫嘅時候，佢發嘅消息唔係話你講俾我聽關介紹下耶穌俾我認識啦。
They send messages that ask very different questions.
佢哋係聯繫呢啲嘅消息嘅時候，一個好唔同嘅問題。
It might be a young 18, 19, 20-year-old woman
可能知佢10幾歲或者20歲嘅係年青少女，
who messages and says, "I'm afraid to go home from university because my grades are not good enough. My father will kill me."
佢可能嘅信息就話：我唔敢翻屋企，因為咧我啲成績太差啦。如果翻去嘅時候，
But she
老豆
means
一定
that
殺死我。
she means that literally.
佢個意思係真係殺死佢嘅。
Or there's other challenging types of situations people are in.
或者有好多其他係好有挑戰嘅人生嘅問題，
And they come online and send a message.
佢哋在線就係發出呢個咁嘅信息，
And they connect with someone who may be the only Christian they ever meet.
佢可能就係聯繫到係喺人生當中唯一嘅基督徒，
Somebody who's just willing to hear them and listen and pray for them.
就係一位願意聆聽、願意為佢禱告嘅人。
That could be you.
呢個可能就係你啦，
Because we've partnered with Power to Change. They have the system all set up.
因為我哋同 Power to Change 一齊呢個機構係夥伴，所以佢所有背後嘅系統啊、後台嘅支援已經完全有晒㗎啦。
The training is in place.
嗰個嘅培訓亦都係好成熟，
It's quite simple.
好簡單。
You start the training. It's 4 modules, each of which is about 20 minutes or so.
總共有係4堂嘅係培訓。
That's the whole thing. Okay, there you go. But when you finish the training, you're ready to try to be a mentor.
所以當你完成咗呢個，你就可以嘗試做呢個導師啊。
Even if you're unsure and you feel nervous and you don't know how to answer all the questions,
所以可能你係冇有把握，又唔知道點樣回答呢啲問題。
there's support there, there's a coach.
你哋有支持同埋有一啲嘅教練，
So you and I get to have the chance to minister today from Canada to South Asia.
我哋今日就可以喺加拿大裏邊去服侍南亞洲嘅呢啲朋友。
I say these 2 examples of church planting and online ministry
我而家講緊係在地嘅係直堂，另外一方面就係在線嘅呢啲事工，
just to show that we can be very creative in what it means to go today.
我即係想展示係今日我哋可以好創意嘅係去達到去呢個嘅係
We can
使命。
partner with those who are on the ground already doing these ministries.
我哋可以係伙伴嗰啲已經係在前線嘅嗰啲嘅同工們，
God is doing miraculous things.
主係做緊好奇妙嘅工作。
There are still times when we will send people, right?
因為仲有時候我哋都係會係差派啲宣教士出工場嘅。
And so we have sent people to South Asia.
我哋有啊，我哋有係差派我哋工人去到南亞
The
洲。
first young couple, we refer to them as Jerome and Morgan.
好，第一對嘅夫婦就係 Jerome 同埋 Morgan，
They're there with their 3 teenage sons.
佢哋係有3個係年青
An
嘅
amazing family.
仔，係啊，一個好好嘅家庭。
But their first job is slightly different than what it used to be as we send
佢
missionaries.
哋現在要負責嘅崗位係同以往嘅傳統嘅事情有啲唔同。
Their first job is to be the liaison between us and our partners.
佢喺嗰度就作為一個嘅係聯繫人，係聯繫當地嘅係 呢個嘅係教團隊同埋我哋宣道會，
to help us communicate well and learn well.
讓我哋去更加清楚在地嘅情況，可以有互相更好嘅聯繫。
So while we will still be going, we go differently than we used to.
雖然我哋仍然會去，但係我哋而家去得唔同啦。
The other woman's name, Rhonda,
另外係有一位嘅姊妹叫 Rhonda，
is one of our international workers.
係我哋嘅宣教士，
She actually lives in Thailand,
佢其實住喺泰國嘅。
and she oversees our digital mentor team.
佢就係帶領我哋呢個數字嘅係面導或者係導師
Because
嘅
in
團
an
隊。
online ministry, it doesn't matter where you live.
因為我哋在線嘅呢個事工嘅時候，你住邊度都得嘅。
So we have members from all over the world.
所以其實我哋有係全球唔同嘅地方嘅成員，
I love that.
我好中意。
All this to say, God has called us. The Great Commission has not been taken back.
一齊要分享呢啲嘢，就講到大使命並冇取消，
God has called us to go.
主已經係呼召你同我要
And He
去，
is at work changing the world.
佢正在已經嗰做動工喺度改變緊世界。
So we need to be creative in what it means to go.
我哋需要有更有創意嘅去實行去。
Yeah, you have a young couple here in the church who are preparing to go, right? Ray and Andia?
係啊，我哋教會咧，我哋自己阿 Ray 啊同 Andy 啊已經準備要出去嘅，
Fantastic couple.
呢個係好即係
And God is going to
正㗎，
use them
佢哋。
in amazing ways.
佢神會使用佢哋一個好奇妙嘅，
He can also use you
但係上帝同樣可以使用你，
right here from Canada.
就喺加拿大呢度。
The last thing I'd like to talk about a little bit is how are we funding all this, just so you know?
最後我想同大家分享就話，究竟我哋點樣去資助係呢一切嘅事工咧？
Well, we're going to funding it in two ways.
我哋係呢個嘅資助係從
One is
兩
through
條
what we
線
call the Global Advance Fund.
一
GAF.
個就係我哋自己宣道總會嘅環球宣教基金，
And within that, there's the Jaffray Project, which you might have heard about.
當中咧就有集富民呢個宣教基金嚟嘅。
So the Jaffray Project, which is part of Global Advance,
集富民宣教基金係呢個環球宣教基金嘅其中一部分。
is helping us raise funds so we can build training centers.
佢都當中就係去係籌集各樣嘅奉獻咧，去幫助我哋起更多嘅培訓中心。
The Global Advance is also where our international workers are supported from.
所以係另外嘅全球我哋嘅環球宣教基金咧，就係支援我哋現在工場所有嘅呢啲嘅宣教士嘅。
So they don't have to go overseas and worry about where their paycheck is coming from.
因為當啲宣教士係去到係個唔同嘅工場嘅地方嘅時候咧，我哋就唔需要擔心佢哋嘅經濟問題，就係總會呢邊支援佢哋啦。
So I would encourage you as a family, as a church,
我喺呢度特別係鼓勵大家作為一個嘅教會大家庭，
to continue to support the Global Advance as you already do.
我哋繼續係支持呢個環球宣教基金，好似大家已經係正在做緊
It's
咁
really
樣。
encouraging to know that that is true here.
我哋好係感到鼓舞，因為我知道喺當中大家都好有支持。
So that's how we're handling the funding.
呢個就係我哋點樣係處理各樣嘅呢個
So
基金啦。
what else does this mean for you?
對你嚟講仲有咩意思咧？
I would encourage you, if you're interested, to go to gatewaytotheworld.com. I think it'll be up on the next slide.
我去鼓勵大家進一步嘅去到呢個 Gateway to the World 呢個 .com 呢個網站上邊。
Now, I apologize because it's only in English so far.
我要道歉嘅，因為暫時咧我哋只有英文嘅啫。
I've got a problem. I need to fix that one.
我係需要去根據就進步一下，調整一下。
But as you go there, you will learn that there are ways for you to be involved.
所以當你嚟呢個網站，你就會睇到有更多嘅資料，講到你點樣嚟去參與。
And yes, I do mean praying,
我哋講係當然要祈禱啦，
and I do mean giving,
我哋講到係奉獻，
because we need those things.
我哋需要嗰啲。
But more importantly, there are ways for you to personally be involved. You can go there and find out how to become a mentor.
其實有更重要嘅就係你可以喺呢度更加去發現，你可以點樣親自嚟到參與。
Imagine that you could be one of the only Christians that someone in South Asia ever meets.
你想象一下，你可能可以成為係喺南亞洲一位朋友一生裏邊係第一次遇到嘅基督徒。
I would like to end this again by rereading a couple of those verses.
我喺度想要重複係剛才我哋讀一啲嘅經文。
So Philippians chapter 1,
係
verse 3 to 6.
腓立比書嘅係第一章3到係6節。我每逢想到你哋，都感謝我的神。每次為你哋大家祈求，總係歡歡喜喜地祈求，因為你哋從第一天直到而家都係我喺福音上邊嘅伙伴。我深信神已經喺你哋當中開始咗美好嘅工作，就會繼續呢個工作，直到基督耶穌嘅日子，將呢個工作完成。
I know this from learning about your church.
我係當我去了解你教會嘅時候，我係發現呢啲嘢。
God has begun a great work in you,
神已經喺你哋當中係開始咗奇妙嘅工作，
and He will complete it.
佢會係完成呢個工作。
So my plea is that you partner with Him in the gospel.
我哋嘅呼求就係讓你哋係喺福音裏邊繼續嘅伙伴，
in whatever ways that might mean for you.
無論喺有咩嘅係渠道方法係對你係好特別嘅。
Thank you for allowing me to be here with you.
多謝大家俾我有機會喺度分享，
Thank you.
多謝。
非常多謝 Mr. Bob 對我哋嘅鼓勵，確實係一個唔容易嘅挑戰，不過亦都唔係唔可能嚟到去發生嘅一個嘅願景。盼望我哋都一齊為着差傳嘅緣故，擺上我哋自己，無論係禱告，無論係金錢，甚至係你自己，我哋每一個嚟到去參與喺其中。我要請大家同站立，一同領受從上而嚟嘅祝福。讚美真神萬福之根，地上生命當讚主人，天上萬軍中讚主名，讚美聖父聖子聖靈。阿門。一同領受從上而嚟嘅祝福。你差嚟到讓你嘅福音俾我哋眾人嚟到得知道，能夠有機會回轉歸向你，呢個係你莫大嘅恩典。甚至主你都差遣我哋成為你嘅使者，為你傳遞呢個福音，成為福音嘅見證人，喺當中繼續讓主耶穌你嘅名被顯為大，亦都叫到人心得着主你呢一個福音嘅時候，得着平安同喜樂，亦都叫每一位接受呢個而嚟嘅盼望。願主耶穌基督嘅恩惠、父神嘅慈愛、聖靈嘅感動與互通，常與我哋眾弟兄姊妹同在，從今時直到永永遠遠。阿門。我哋一同唱我哋嘅讚美詩。願主看顧你，願平安歸於你，願主保守你，一生直到萬代，願主的福氣傾倒於你，我的主真。願主看顧你，願平安歸於你，願主保守你，生直到萬代，願主的福氣傾倒於你，我的主真的愛你，我的。之後散會。